My name is Mike Foster, the Entrepreneur's Mentor, and welcome to my interview series, A Zoom With. I regularly share my thoughts via video snippets on my YouTube channel, but this series of interviews is to introduce you to trusted experts with a view of them sharing their thoughts and their tips with you. And today I'm joined by Kathryn Jeacock of DBKT Coaching. And Kathryn is a leadership and team coach who provides executive coaching to leaders to create the space to elevate their performance. Welcome, Kathryn.
Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited for our conversation.
Thanks for joining me. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing a bit about your offering, your coaching, and how you help businesses. So to kick off, if you just like to introduce a little bit more about yourself and the business that you have.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So yeah, as I said, I'm Kathryn Jeacock and I'm the director and founder of DBKT Coaching. So at DBKT, we're a people consultancy who work with businesses to elevate their leaders and accelerate team performance in this changing world of work.
Excellent, thank you. And what made you set up DBKT then?
So over the last few years, I've been really lucky to work within organisations as a HR professional, looking at the changes that we need to make today for the challenges of the future world of work. And over the last few decades, changes to the future of work has been progressing fairly slowly. But with COVID, those changes have really accelerated. And I think it's opened the eyes of a lot of business owners and leaders to actually a different way of working. So I thought this was a great opportunity to step away from my successful HR career and take the next step in supporting more businesses with not just surviving in these times, but really thriving and making the most of the opportunities that these changes are making.
Great, thank you. And you obviously have had a great career to date in terms of the roles that you've had, and you've obviously gained lots of insight. So based on that insight, what services are you going to offer for your business?
So at DBKT, we do three things. So we work with your leaders to get them fit for the future. So that could be learning and development, workshops and initiatives, and one-to-one coaching, or it could be team coaching with a team of leaders. We also work with your teams to really unlock the power that team performance can bring. And that again can be through team coaching and innovative problem-solving techniques. And then the third thing that we offer is to underpin that investment in your leaders and your teams. We provide HR services so that we can underpin those people practices to support the changes that you're making. So it's all aligned and it all fits together and helps that transformation and change.
Fantastic. It does seem very encapsulating in terms of what you're offering, and very sort of thoughtful in terms of what that offering will be. One of the things you mentioned to me when we spoke offline was about team coaching through action learning. Can you just extend on that? Because I'm not sure it's a phrase that many businesses will understand, team coaching.
Yes. So team coaching is something that I'm really passionate about, and we can use a problem solving technique called action learning. Now in the UK, action learning typically tends to have that eye roll effect for a number of leaders because there's a number of methodologies that you can use. But I use action learning methodology, which is the World Institute for Action Learning. And it's a great problem solving technique where you get everyone in a room, you're working on real business challenges, and you're also developing your leadership skills at that time. And so it's a really groundbreaking and thought-provoking conversation that also provides that learning and development for leaders. And whilst you're doing that work, you're also solving business challenges. So it's kind of win-win.
Thank you. And I guess to sort of help us sort of position the type of organisations that you can help, the type of organisations that would need your sort of support, what sort of organisations have you worked with recently?
So recently I've worked with an organisation called C4S Search. So they're a recruitment agency and they're on a great scale up and growth trajectory. And they were really hit in the initial stages of the COVID pandemic and the first lockdown. But because they had such audacious growth plans, I worked with one of the founders and managing director, Ryan O'Hara, firstly through executive coaching, so providing one-to-one coaching, working through the challenges that he was facing and taking a real solutions focused, forward looking approach to how he can overcome those challenges so that he can bounce back and really thrive as a business. Part of that work involved co-creating a strategy day that he delivered to his organisation. And then I ran a team coaching session with his leadership team, where we looked at developing new culture and values for sort of C4S 2.0, as they called it, to really help them bounce back, develop those leadership skills that will help to embed those new values and cultures, and also as a leadership team agree ways of working that are going to help them in their sort of different future that they're working in. So I really enjoyed working with C4S, and it's just fantastic to see them growing from strength to strength.
That's a great case study, and thanks for sharing that with me, because I think that gives a bit of an insight to those that may be watching the video back at some point in terms of, like, again, how that may fit to their organization. So I guess you're working with loads of leaders in terms of the work you do and what you're developing in terms of your business. So have you got any tips for leaders working in our virtual world as we are today?
Yes, yeah, gosh, this is a challenging one, and I know from supporting the businesses that it's just been so tough over the last year. So from my observations, there's sort of three key things that I think people need to be looking at in this virtual world. The first one is around creating connection. So it comes really naturally to us when we're in a more face-to-face world, you know, over a cup of coffee, over the lunch table, getting to know people, what they've done at the weekend, and, you know, how they're feeling. It's so difficult in a virtual world, and typically our interactions with individuals and teams is tactical. So as leaders, we need to be making more of an effort to create those meaningful connections. You know, when you're asking how someone is, really mean it and listen to the answer and take some time to really explore and have that conversation rather than rushing straight into the tactical stuff. So it does take a bit more effort in this virtual world, but creating connections is really key. The second one is around teams, as you would expect. So again, our investment in teams typically tends to be on the tactical level, and typically you might get a team together, but it's really just focusing on the individual roles and what's being delivered. But taking that time to bring your teams together, re-clarify your purpose. What is this team for? What are you delivering? What are the different roles and how do they work together? And agreeing ways of working and celebrating success. Really taking that time to bring your teams together so that they get to know each other even better is, again, really vital in this virtual world. And then thirdly is a concept that I'm starting to think about around endurance. So we're talking a lot about resilience. And I kind of think we've gone past resilience. We're now in endurance mode. And I really love the metaphor of thinking about this as kind of a marathon that has no finish line. And we're really needing to create endurance for ourselves as leaders, but also for our individuals. So when you're thinking about running a marathon, or you're running a half marathon or something like that, there's really basic things around kit. You know, have people got the right equipment to be able to continue and be productive? Are people making sure that they're looking after themselves in terms of their nutrition and hydration? And then if any of you have run a marathon or a half marathon, I had a brief experience with running, you know, the thing that really gets you through is breaking things down into small chunks. So whether that's just getting through to the next K or running to the next tree or just putting your foot in front of the other, having those really manageable goals really can help you to continue to progress. And then the other thing around endurance is when you're running a race or something, it's the crowd and the other runners that really gets you through. So I think it's really important to be thinking about how are we supporting one another? How are we being kind to one another? How are we championing each other? And how are we taking time to sort of recognize and celebrate success? So those are the three things for the virtual world that I think we need to be focusing on.
Thanks, Kathryn. They're really insightful three tips. I really appreciate that. And I do think that the pandemic, you know, it's the intervention most businesses didn't want, obviously, but it did speed up that sort of virtual world, didn't it? You know, that virtual world was coming at some point. So I think those three tips you've shared there, and I love actually the reflection you've just made from resilience to endurance, because I've actually been talking to people recently about, you know, how resilient people were in 2020 and how they've carried those skills forward to 2021. I think you're right. I think it's probably been done, and endurance is a lovely phrase to use, actually. And so thanks for sharing that, and particularly helpful for me because I'm actually taking up the running again. I've just been challenged by one of my clients to do the run ragger and across Brighton rocks. So I need to take on those tips as well. So thanks for that. But I guess extending just again with your thoughts and your experience, how do you see the future of work?
Yeah, so there's a couple of areas that I think are really starting to change. One of those areas is around organisational design. So most organisations are still structured the same way they were back in the early 1900s and the Industrial Revolution. And so we're still having those very hierarchical structures within our organisations. Now, the future of work and our ways of working, those structures are starting to creak, and we need to start to think about what are the different ways that we can organise our businesses to really get the best from our leaders and our teams. One of the concepts that I've been exploring and I'm really interested in is around self-managed teams. And there's a number of organisations who have already adopted this approach and have been highly successful in it. So I'm really interested to see how that develops over the course of the next few years. But I think that's going to be a really interesting one to look at, how you're designing your businesses to get the best out of people. The second one sort of aligns with that, is around post-heroic leadership. So again, our leadership styles have been very successful in sort of this heroic leadership stance. So going in and saving the day, operating from a power, status, and expert power base. Now, the world is so complex, and we're really experiencing it now, sort of the rate of change, the ambiguity. It's just too complex for one individual to have all the answers, to have all the knowledge and expertise. So leadership needs to change around those skills on how do you bring people together? How do you get that diversity of thought from people? And that's a completely different skill set from what stood people in good stead in the past. So that's something that I really see changing, but it's going to be really tough for people who've already always operated in that way. And then the third thing that I think is really important is allyship. So allyship is here to stay. It needs to become part of any organisation's core, and creating work environments where people can be their authentic self. They don't have to code switch. They have to feel that sense of belonging, and creating spaces where you have that diversity of thought and you can bring people together to feel psychologically safe and included in the environment is just going to be a strategic imperative for any organisation going forward.
Again, really insightful information, and I could listen all day, to be fair. One of the ones I want to, those three things I did want to extend on as I was thinking, is self-managed teams. Just very briefly, how does that work? How does that compute?
Yeah, so the way we structured at the moment is that as a group of adults, we need to have somebody above us to tell us what to do and keep us in check. That's a very outdated and traditional way of managing teams. And actually, the future is about understanding that we're all adults in the work environment. We all understand what's expected of us. And actually, we can work together without having to have somebody above us to deliver what's required. So it's about creating those teams where everyone's clear on their roles and responsibilities, and there's more collaboration and consensus amongst the team around working together to achieve deliverables, goals, success. So you don't have a manager over the top of that team. That team is working together to deliver what the business needs.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kathryn. As I just mentioned, I could talk to you all day, but I will continue to follow you on social because the insight that you're sharing is fantastic. How will other people follow you, whether it's on LinkedIn or any other purpose?
Yes, so you can follow me on LinkedIn. So search up Kathryn Jeacock and you'll find me there. I'm also on Instagram at DBKT Coaching.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kathryn. Thank you again for joining me today, sharing your time and obviously sharing some thoughts with us. Really insightful information. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Mike.
So please subscribe to my YouTube channel and get notified each time I've published one of these new Zoom with interviews. And I'll see you next time for a Zoom with whoever's next.